Hey, what's going on, guys? I wanted to take the opportunity in my commute going home. Couldn't do it this morning because it was dark. In my commute coming home to talk about this fear of failure. I did a post on it this morning talking about it. I also want to talk about gun confiscation and the assault weapons ban that's bound to happen. And I also want to talk about a question that I was asked from somebody who said, I asked Andy Stump this: if you were to change special operations selection, what would you do and why? So the first thing is failure. Most likely you're not going to succeed. Like in the yearbook, most likely not to succeed is because you weren't willing to take the chance because of your fear of failure. However you line that out, in virtue signaled or in suppression, in not giving your opinion, the root cause of your likelihood of not succeeding was probably caused by your fear of failure. So many people are challenged that way. They don't want to go after their dreams, their aspirations, even the girl of their dreams, because they're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of failing. And what I said in the post facetiously is that everybody should look forward to failing. Because when you think about failing, most of us think of failing as binary. It's like win or lose, succeed or fail. But that's not how the world works. That's not how this works. How it works is you navigate your world succeeding and failing in everything you do, and that's just the way of the world. Meaning, in business, I never went into business at Philcraft and said, hey, I'm going to succeed. And there was some definitive moment where I stood up on a hilltop and went, I am successful. Because that's not how the shit works. I wish it was, but it's not how it works. Instead, success looks like laying my head on my pillow and reflecting on my day and my experiences and my memories and going, man, did I have an impact positively on people? Did I serve a purpose in people's lives? Did I do my best to serve my employees, myself, my family, and friends? And if the answer to those is yes, maybe sometimes it's no, but yes, that's a success to me. And where it feels like a failure is when I'm letting people down, when I'm not giving my all, when I'm not living purpose, when I'm not having these micro victories. So it's never a definitive moment. So a lot of us get caught up in this, Hollywood weird montage of how we look at life and think that's the way it works, but it doesn't. So if you get used to failing, meaning you have a mindset to say, I look forward to failing, then what you're saying is I look forward to the opportunities and putting myself, instead of being risk adverse, putting myself where there's a chance of success. And that success could be a happy experience with a member of the opposite sex, making memories with families, with friends, having a career opportunity that unfolds and unravels itself to lead to some kind of semblance of living your best life. That's what it is. Remember, going to selection and failing, that's a very definitive metric for success or failure. But if you don't make it in selection, does that mean you failed in life? No. That means you failed in one specific task. And why did you fail? You could probably outline the reasons why, and then going and becoming better and going again, or applying those lessons learned in your everyday life will lead to better outcomes and better circumstances and really successes across your lifeline. We don't need to look at our life that's binary and win, lose. It's about living a constant pattern of life that leads to successes. And I look at those as micro victories. That to me feels like success. No accumulative effect of like, oh yeah, you got $1 million in the bank, and that's what success means. I don't care what that is. Oh yeah, you got $1 million business. I don't care what that is. It's all about the intangibles, for lack of a better term. On the gun confiscation thing, guys, there is going to be an assault weapons ban. People are worried about this ban and this confiscation. Here's what's less likely to happen. In 1994, we experienced an assault weapons ban that lasted 10 years. No manufacturing of assault weapons that were deemed, retractable buttstocks, short barrels, the list goes on. You could Google those searches. But everybody, for the most part, was grandfathered in. The biggest gross effect was the imports of those weapon systems coming in. The data tells us ultimately, and you can Wikipedia this if you care, that the assault weapons ban didn't do anything to lower or reduce gun crime. That's proven by multiple reliable sources, even academia, which is literally the most liberal institutions that you could find. There are a couple studies that says it reduced mass shootings during that period of time, but there's other studies that contradict that and say it didn't do anything. So what does this mean? Well, it means as a political statement and move that if you want to accumulate a division, then you're bound to do so by creating an assault weapons ban and confiscation. But if you're going to do it moderately, with a softer hand, then that approach is going to lend itself to better outcomes politically. Because, you can do an assault weapons ban, but your party is probably going to lose the next time around. And statistically, it's been proven not to have a real effect on reducing anything. So are they going to confiscate guns? No, it's more likely going to be the grandfather clause, where everything you have in your closet, in your cache, buried in your backyard, you can keep, which is just really a check the block. But they will hurt the manufacturing industry. I think personally, based on conversations I have with smarter people than me, like Neil Curry, who owns Ready Gunner, that it's going to be one of the worst years or 4 years of gun sales and gun industry in the history of our country. That's because you see this spike that we had pre-election, where we had the best gun sales, meaning holding the most inventory, followed by now there's no demand. There's actually a large demand now, but after all the laws get put into place, where people are going to be put out of business, including retail shops, manufacturers, and everybody in between. So somebody asked me, Mike, if somebody confiscated your guns, what would you do? Well, that's not really how it works, because you have the federal government, right? That's federally enforcing laws. Their scale is limited because of capacity, because of people. The FBI is not going to go west coast to east coast, ocean to ocean, and enforce and confiscate everybody's guns. They would have to depend on local municipalities to do that. And already, sheriffs and police chiefs more sheriffs than police chiefs, have come out of the woodwork stating they will not enforce laws that infringe on constitutional rights. So a lot of these are just check the block things, laws that people put in place that mean absolutely nothing. Will you still have your AR-15? Yes. Will anybody enforce it? Maybe. If you're a criminal and they're stacking charges and you have guns, then yeah, you're going to eat that charge. But are people going to actively pursue those law-abiding citizens who overnight became felons because they owned a specific type of weapon? What am I going to do? If the federal government knocked on my door and said, we need to take all your AR-15s, well, what are my options here? Well, you can go to prison right now, or we can take your guns. Well, then take my guns, because what I have in my house is not what I have in stock. Maybe, right? Because I believe that a balanced power is an armed society of law-abiding citizens, of we the prepared, we the people, against tyranny, oppression that's typically been manifested and executed by governments, by dictators, by oppressive people, because people are the government. So when you say, hey, would you give up your guns? The answer is no, because I don't want to give up my guns, because I don't want to give up the balance of powers, because that's what makes America great. You know what doesn't make it great in balancing powers? Clear examples of Libya, Iraq, Yemen, and the list goes on. I can go down a Rolodex of countries that I personally have been to and seen the after effects of what that fleshes out to be. So, am I asking you to commit a crime? No. Am I asking you to stand your ground and fight in a civil war? No. There's more important things to die for. The defense of my family, my friends, my community are important. These arbitrary legal statutes and laws where it's not effectively been executed or enforced at all, which is proof in 94 to 2004 in the assault weapons ban. Proof is in the pudding. More to follow on how it evolves, but be very careful in how you disseminate how that's going to go down, because likely it's not going to go down how you think. I mean, luckily for us, we have this thing called the Supreme Court. Now, yeah, can things happen politically that affect that? Yes, but it's less likely. I mean, the governor of California is being sued and because of his overstepping of his authorities and his legal power. So we'll see how it unfolds, but don't get too excited yet. If you don't have ARs, if you don't have weapons to defend yourself and your family, I recommend doing that if you haven't done so already. The last question was, somebody asked Andy Stump, and they decided to ask me, what would you do if you made a special operations selection, and what would you change and why? Well, I think certain special operations selection, like read the book by Haney. I think it's Eric Haney. That selection process has been the same since the beginning of its origins in the 80s. That's a good selection process. What I hate about Special Forces Green Beret selection is that we keep changing it, thinking it's going to result in something better when we had a good product to begin with. Instead of focusing on the assessment selection process, let's focus on the sustainment of holding what we got, meaning good special operators and special operations, special forces, specifically Green Berets, and investing in their role, their careers, because they've already been through selection. How do you weed out? Well, there's many ways to do it. The Navy does it through the ocean. The Army does it through land navigation and a rucksack on your back. That's a good way to weed out the people who don't want to be there. That's one part of it. The next part of it is to see psychologically how people interoperate with people that they don't know. Meaning team building, team events, and special forces selection is good at assessing that. So I think we got to have a good product in what we call Team Week. Lastly, how do people operate as singletons on their own? We have land navigation. What is a person going to do when you give them a map, an understanding of land navigation, a compass, and you throw them in the woods in the day and night? How are they going to operate in austere environments and conditions where they have to push through doing a technical thing? That's a great way to assess. What do we do wrong? Well, we manipulate the selection process every single quarter because some officer comes in and decides to reinvent the wheel. That's problematic. Officers as a whole in special operations, which I think there are too many of them, is problematic. There's plenty of non-commissioned officer problems, but the officer corps and special forces specifically, there's a huge problem. And it doesn't have to do with individuals, because the guys are great. It has to do with the structure and the task organization, how people make their ways through career fields. The list goes on. But something I would add is potentially an assessment in the water. What I've always respected about the Navy is their ability to attrit people through the water, because you could immediately tell if somebody's in fear and whether or not they're going to succeed physically, emotionally, and their mindset. Because when somebody is scared or in fear, they will fail in the water. That's real easy to detect. But people could push through on land. The sea, completely different. That's one reason I never went to the Navy, because the ocean scares the shit out of me, and I probably wouldn't have done well, even though I grew up in the water and could swim like a fish. It's also, I knew that if I went to BUDS and I failed, I would be spending the rest of my career mopping the decks of a battle carrier ship, versus I can go into Rangers, I can go into specific combat fields in the Army. It's not a perfect system. I think the guys are doing their best, but I think if we could just stick with a formula like the Special Missions Unit do very effectively, then we'll have a better product. That's the result of that. Guys, I wasted 14 minutes of your time. If you held on this long, I appreciate your time. We're doing the toy drive. I have fieldcraftsurvival.locals.com, where we put specific premiere content and free content on that channel. If you're interested in learning more about what we do, please go to fieldcraftsurvival.locals.com, because that's the place we cache to hide away our content from suppression. You won't see me do a lot for these channels besides what I'm doing now, but the bulk of our technical training and the things that we do are on the Locals channel. I hope you have a good day. I hope you have a good night. fieldcraftsurvival.com. Thanks for everything you guys do for us. Peace out, guys.